Good morning. There is a group of us from across the state of Idaho that recognize that execution is not the only way to keep Idahoans safe from murderers. Instead, we are Idahoans against the death penalty. We realize that we've been more than a decade without an execution. We can hold people accountable with executions, and we are seeking to do that and to gather folks together who share that perspective. So anyone who wants to join that effort or to even learn more about it can go to idahoansagainstthedeathpenalty.org to participate in our efforts. I am not a lawyer, and I am not here to comment on any of the legal circumstances of what's going on in Mr. Creech's case. On the other hand, I am deeply grateful for Judge Snow, who issued the stay of execution this week in order for him to have time to hear the issues related to the state of Idaho seeking to execute a man or carry out the order for execution for a second time with a single person. You may have heard, as we learned yesterday, that Mr. Creech has been returned to his regular cell. He is no longer on death watch. And you may also know that he is in his 70s with a variety of medical problems. I'm told that he is not doing well, and no wonder, with this cruelty and torture that we are putting him through repeatedly now. Regardless of people's opinions about the death penalty, the vast majority of Idahoans are shocked and troubled to learn that the state is preparing to spend over $1 million to construct the facility that is needed to carry out execution by firing squad. We haven't had an execution in over a decade, and yet this money is about to be spent in this way when it could be much better spent supporting the victims, supporting families of crime victims or the victims themselves. That money could be spent intervening in the lives of youth who are headed towards a life of crime or violence. When the state is seeking to execute someone for a second time, that is no longer about his crimes. That's about us. That's not about justice, that's about Idahoans, those of us who are taxpayers and who are this state, seeking to be cruel and to carry out vengeance. That's not who I am. That's not the Idahoans who I know. We can do better. So I am inviting everyone to do better and to seek an end to all executions in Idaho. Again, you can join that effort or learn more about it at idahoansagainstthedeathpenalty.org. With that, I want to invite Bishop Meggan Manlove of the Evangelical Lutheran Church of America to offer her comments.
Thanks. I echo everything that District Superintendent Hernandez said, and I prepared a statement. The Lutherans of the Northwest Intermountain Synod, ELCA, grieve the scheduled execution of Mr. Thomas Creech. We give thanks for the stay. At the 2023 gathering of the ELCA Lutherans from Idaho, Eastern Washington, and parts of Wyoming and Oregon, we passed a resolution condemning the use of the firing squad and all forms of the death penalty. Why? My family of Lutheran Christians believes we are called to respond to violent crime in the restorative way taught by Jesus and shown by his actions. Restorative justice involves addressing the hurt of each person whose life has been touched by violent crime. This approach makes the community safer for all. Executions represent an unacceptable, non-restorative approach to violent crime. Executions can reinforce social injustice. Violent crime reminds us that we have failed to ensure justice for all members of society. Yet people often respond to violent crime as though it were exclusively the criminal's individual failure. Capital punishment makes no provable impact on the breeding grounds of violent crime. Executions harm society by reinforcing existing injustice. The death penalty distracts us from our work toward a just society. The death penalty cannot possibly be administered justly. The justice system is not perfect, and yet an execution cannot be undone if a verdict is overturned. The practice of the death penalty, including the possible execution of Mr. Creech, undermines any possible moral message we might want to send. It is not fair. It will fail to make society better or safer. The message conveyed by this scheduled execution is one of brutality and violence. and I'm indebted to our church body for our 1991 social statement about the death penalty. Thanks.
I failed to mention, though I met folks here in person earlier, I'm Reverend Karen Hernandez, District Superintendent with the United Methodist Church. Are there questions that you'd like to ask now, or we can do that more casually off camera?
It's up to you.
Yeah, either way.
All right, Mark, if you've got all our supporters on camera.
I do.
Excellent.